We believe that every life is both ordinary and extraordinary. On this show, we will hear real-life stories involving UFOs, paranormal incidents, ESP, angel encounters, survival stories, and much more.
Whether the experience was exciting or difficult, we're here to listen, support, and learn something new. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Crabtree. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories. And here's my co-host, Billy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Extraordinary Stories. You know, we've been away for a couple of weeks, and I want to say that we've missed you. We appreciate it if you've been watching the previous broadcasts that we've been doing. I hope that we've gained some new followers who even had a better chance to get to know us. And I hope that those of you who've been following us had a chance to revisit some of those shows. We tried to pick the ones that we thought would really be, they've all been interesting, but the ones that we thought that you would really like seeing again. We're happy to be back. If you're new to our broadcast, I want to kind of just give you an example of what we do. We try to find people who are just everyday, normal people who have an extraordinary story, whether it's been a near-death experience with ghosts, spiritual experiences with UFOs, experiences with Bigfoot, whatever the experience may be. We want to hear your story. This podcast is for firsthand experiences, for you to be able just to tell what you've been through. I mean, every day we hear people talking about other people's stories and what they've done and what they've heard. But I think it's very important for us to get together and to make what seems to be abnormal, because we don't say it enough, actually normal. To make the extraordinary, like our theme is, ordinary. So we invite you here. We're glad you're back. We hope you continue to follow us. And I think today, like always, you're going to enjoy this show. I'm always going to say this because I think, Suzanne, we have some really, really good shows.
I agree, definitely. And, like Billy said, there's always been such a taboo that a lot of times people have gone through something really interesting, sometimes scary, but, definitely life-changing, and they're too afraid to talk about it because they're afraid of being ostracized or criticized. And so they keep them to themselves. And if we don't all feel free sharing, and, I am able to learn from you and you're able to learn from me, then where are we at? We're still in the dark. So we have a great guest today. His name is David, and he is someone that was an up-close viewer of the UFO that flew over Phoenix on March 13th of 1997. And when that happened, it was all over the news. And even though I live in Phoenix, unfortunately, I was in the house. I missed the whole thing. And normally I'm kind of a target for high strangeness like David is, but I was in the house. I missed it. He has a really interesting story to tell because he got a really good vantage point to it. And then he's had some other experiences of that nature going forward. So welcome, David, to the show.
Well,
hello. Hi, David.
Hey.
Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, David, as Billy mentioned, we focus on ordinary people who had extraordinary experiences. So tell us a little bit about yourself as an ordinary person. What do you do? What do you like?
I just recently retired in September, which I am totally enjoying. I started out my my life as a hairdresser, and I wanted to do something a little more serious. So a lot of my clients were nurses, and they told me such wonderful stories and all the good vibes and the lessons that they learned from their patients, and it motivated me to become a nurse also. So I've been in 2 careers in my life, and both of them were touching people and having that contact. And I've loved both of them. So
how many years were you a nurse?
It's been about 40.
Wow.
Wow.
That's long, yes. And then I did hair and nursing simultaneously for a while. So because I love doing hair too.
Uh,
It's not life saving like nursing, but it's just as valuable when you touch and talk to your client. I think a lot of times people came in just for that versus just getting their bangs trimmed. So
absolutely.
happy
I have,
to participate.
I have a son who's a barber, so I know the importance of it. And and congratulations on your being able to retire. Major accomplishment.
It is nice that I thought I lived long enough to retire.
Yeah. All right. David, take us back to March 13th of 1997
I sure.
and just kind of walk us through exactly what happened.
At the time, I was a hospice nurse for 17 years. And at the time in Mesa, I worked at a hospice inpatient unit. And it was a small house, and we had 10 beds, and we cared end of life care for 10 patients. Our average patient life expectancy was 72 hours. So we were on the run constantly, not only caring for the patients, but also for their families that were there. So very often in this tiny little house, we'd have 40 family members mourning over the deaths and the dying patients. So I was doing 12-hour shifts, and the night person that was going to replace me was late, and so I didn't leave on time, which put me at the best possible place I could be to see the Phoenix lights. Had I gotten out on time, I probably would have been home and inside the house too, and would have missed it. So I was in East Mesa, lived in Phoenix. So I was driving down 60 from Mesa to Phoenix, which at the time, it was like under construction for like 10 years. It was just constantly torn up. And the freeway was actually dirt. And every time you came to an overpass, you had to get off the overpass and then get back on the freeway. And I was probably somewhere around Tempe. I don't remember the exact exit that I got off because everything was so torn up. And when I got off the overpass, there was this huge hill of dirt. And I had to drive clear up on the top of this hill of dirt to go down and get back on the freeway. And when I got up there on the top of the hill, I happened to look off to my right, and there was this massive boomerang shaped object with some lights on the bottom coming towards me. So I slammed on my brakes and I jumped out of my truck, and I got out as it was coming towards me. Because I was at such an elevated level, there was a street light right behind me. Street lights are generally 30, 40 feet in the air. I was so high up on this pile of dirt that the street light was parallel with me. It was probably about 2 o'clock behind my right shoulder. So it was shining down on the dirt, shining down on me. And as the craft slowly came upon me, the reflection of the light on the ground and the light from the street light, I could clearly see the bottom of the craft. To me, it looked like it was about a mile wide from tip to tip. A nice, smooth, kind of banana-shaped boomerang. It wasn't sharp, and I've seen drawings where people draw it as a V, and it wasn't that at all. I could clearly make out the outline of the craft from the ambient light from the city, and then the part closest to me, the left wing. Of course, I had the street light, and also had my brights were still on my truck, shining. So as it was coming up to me, trying to see how that looks on the camera. If it fell down, I could take like 2 steps and I could have kicked the tip of the left wing. It was like a gunmetal gray. It was probably about 20% reflective. The rest was more like a matte finish color. There were no seams. There was no bolts. It was just smooth fabric material, whatever it was. And on the bottom was like thousands of oval indentations and kind of like a thumbprint. And in the little the little holes, indentations in a golf ball, similar to that, not quite as deep, but oval shaped, going lengthwise from the tip of the left wing as far as I could see to the bottom, through the bottom of the craft. I don't, maybe they were that big, maybe that big, a foot maybe. The nearest light was close to me, and it wasn't a bulb. It was actually like a canister. It was like an opening, and I'm sure it was round, but then I was seeing it at an angle, so it kind of looked a little oval, and I could see a little bit of a ways up inside the canister, or opening. I should call it an opening, and probably a few inches inside there was a silver lining on the inside of that opening. It came out maybe about 2 or 3 inches, had a very sharp corner, and went up into wherever in the craft. And what was flowing down, it looked like exactly like lava. It was like a very thick, viscous liquid. It poured down, and as it got lower and lower from the craft, it would slow down, form like a huge drop, and stop, and then go back up into the craft, kind of like a lava lamp, but upside down and faster. And as some was coming down, other was going up. It was there was probably 8, 9, 10 big streams of it, and little streams kind of coming down, stop, and instead of like sucking back up into the craft, it looked like it fell. It looked like it fell up back into the craft, and it would just pour down, and other streams were pouring up, and as it was poured down, it would kind of fan out and get thin, and where it got thin, it went from orange to yellow. So there was a swirling effect of orange and yellow light from this. The orange was just like orange crush, and it wasn't reflecting light from inside the craft like a lava lamp does. Lava lamp carries the light from the bulb in the lamp. This stuff actually glowed itself, and I was afraid I was going to get burned. I was so close. It looked so hot. And I just remember thinking, I got very scared and very concerned. Should I run back? What should I do? As it was flying about 30 feet over my head. So, but there was no heat. And I thought, that's really odd. No heat, made no sound. It had no odor. There was no burning on my face. There was no burning in the nose. I had no taste in my mouth. There was no tingling on my skin. I was being very, very focused. Should I be concerned or should I not be concerned? And it was just like effortlessly just floating by. So to look at the tip, the left wing tip, I had to look up 90 degrees to see it because it was pretty much right over my head. But the rest of the craft, because it was about 30 feet above my head. It was about an angle like this. So I could see the rest of the craft without moving my head. All I had to do was lift my eyes. So almost all of my vision was done horizontal with the craft. I know other people talk about it, and they were looking up and just seeing lights. It was low, I was high. Somehow we came, within 30 feet of each other during that.
Could you see like more towards the top of it, or were you still seeing the sort of the bottom and the nose of it?
I could only see the bottom of the craft. When it was coming up, there seemed to be a little bit more craft before the lights were strung from left to right, from tip to tip. Then there was lights to the end of the craft. It was rounded and smooth, absolutely beautiful, gunmetal gray color. And then as it was passing over, there was like this colorful rainbow mist, kind of swirled around and kind of moved, almost like a flag in the wind. And then it dissipated. And again, I was thinking, is this gas? Am I going to get, I'm a nurse. We worry about things like this. Those are consequences. And there wasn't. I had no negative effect whatsoever from this thing coming over my head. I remember thinking, because it was so close, and I'm on this pile of dirt, and I'm a guy, so what do? We want to throw a rock at it. So I was thinking, wow, I wonder what it would sound like if I hit it. Is it going to echo? Is it, is it paper? Or, I mean, what was it? But then I thought, well, there's might be consequences from that. And also if they are, whoever built that, that would not be respectful. Welcome to Earth. Bang. So, so now though, thinking back, I keep thinking, gosh, I wonder what it would have sounded like if I hit it with a rock.
I appreciate you being polite to the aliens. I didn't want you to start no war that night.
Yeah, you may not be here to tell the story if you had given into your urge.
Crispy David. So,
like, what did you think it was when you were seeing it, and how were you feeling when you were standing there?
I wished I had known it was coming, and I wished I could have, in a way, had prepared myself. Though I 100% was focused on this craft and my physical reaction to it, because it's big. I mean, being almost a mile wide and floating over your head, and here's little tiny David underneath it. What is it going to do? But it wasn't menacing whatsoever. And as it passed over, and I started watching it going south, and then it kind of went a little, looks like it went a little to the west. I was just overwhelmed with this feeling. The closest I can guess is gratitude. I just felt like I grew 500 feet. I was just filled with this incredible, wonderful feeling of gratitude. And I stood there and I cried for 10 minutes, watching it out, going down the road. Went down, 70 or whatever, going south down towards Tucson. So was it the craft? Did it do something to me, or did I do something to myself? I don't know. But prior to this, and of course I was a hospice nurse, so you got to be a nice guy anyway. But I would have my moments where, like, driving, someone's going too slow, and I would honk on the horn, or I'm hurrying in the store, and sorry, you let people cut through. From that moment on, now just over 25 years, I've never honked my horn at anybody ever. I let people cut in line in front of me. I smile for no reason. Stress in my life is minimal. I mean, compared to everybody else's, I don't react in a negative way. And that's been consistent every single day now for over a quarter of a century. Something happened for the better. And I don't want to read into it if they did something to my brain or I did. I don't know. But it's been 100% positive experience for me.
Did you believe in UFOs or anything before that point, or was that something that really just kind of changed your whole perspective about the universe, the world, or the visitors? What was that for you? Was it something brand new, or was it finally real evidence and proof for you?
And I was never interested in UFOs. And it's weird because a few years before that, who's that guy, Heineck, the guy with the little Colonel Sanders mustache, did... I don't know, what was it? Some UFO investigation back in the 60s. I can't think right now.
Project Blue Book?
Blue Book, that was it.
Yeah.
I spent an afternoon with him. I was visiting a friend of mine, Brad Steiger, who was he wrote a lot of books on UFOs and things. And so I spent an afternoon with Heine, and I just ignored him because it's like, I don't care about UFOs. All these, I could have asked all these questions and I didn't.
Yeah, but, and he's legendary. He was involved in Project Blue Book and the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And
you're like, eh.
Oh, UFOs, how boring. So, I would just kind of like flip through magazines, and here I could have had hours speaking, having a conversation with the man, but it wasn't my thing. When I was 10 years old, in 1965, um, we were driving. My dad was driving. My mom was in the front seat. I was in the back seat reading a comic book, and we were driving by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And my dad pointed out a building and said to my mom, "That's where we stored the flying saucers and the alien bodies." And he went on to tell her what the room looked like and how the room's built that you wouldn't notice it from outside or inside. And I hear this, so I beep up. I want to go see the flying saucer. My dad didn't realize I was listening, so he quickly changed this story and let's go get ice cream. And he said only special people get to see that. So I always wondered. I wish I would have pushed more. He was in the Army from 1945 to either 1952 or 53. So was he a part of Roswell or some other crash? He was in such detail telling my mom about it. And over the years, he would ask me, "Do you believe in flying saucers?" That's what they called them back then. And I would
Hmm.
think, "Well, maybe. What do you think?" And he would always say, "Oh, they're out there." But he died before the Roswell stuff became news again in the late 70s and in the 80s. So another missed opportunity that I could have, maybe pushed him a little farther. I think he wanted to talk. I think he was afraid to talk, but I bet I could have got some juice out of him. And his dad, my grandfather, when we would go visit him, he had a clipping from the newspaper in Ohio where in 1919 he saw a cigar-shaped object flying over the houses and over the trees and then zipping off in the sky. So that was
Wow.
way before UFOs and flying saucers. So this is like 3 generations in our family that got to see one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always think it's generational. I always think that if you have a UFO experience, an encounter, that really you can kind of go back to the family. And I think there's something about specific people where we're given the opportunity to even see, closer or to really kind of see that evidence. Your view of the Phoenix lights that night was amazing. I mean, for you to have such detail or and I was going to ask you the question, but you already confirmed it for me that you didn't have any physical effects afterwards because being that close, we always think about radiation or because it's from another planet. What if did you have blisters the next day? Did you have blurred vision? Anything like that? But you said that there was nothing different except for your peacefulness. You were at peace.
It was, and I did pay attention to my skin and my body and my taste and everything. My hair burned and all this stuff. I kept watching, and absolutely nothing negative happened. But this inner peacefulness, and every time I think of that, and I think about it almost every day. I mean, that's the effect this thing had on me. I can't think of hardly any other um, event I've had in my life that has had such a change in my life, and it was 100% positive.
Hmm.
And so I drive down the street and I wave to people. Everybody else is honking at them all the time now, for a quarter of a century. What was it? Why? Why did I have that change? Do you
Yeah.
know?
I hate that I missed it. I mean, I would have loved to been able to see it. I was in Arizona at the time.
Uh,
I wish I had been able to be privy to kind of see that. I would have been happy just seeing it from the looking up like everybody else did. So I wasn't paying attention enough to the sky that night. I was probably in the house cooking or something.
well, and people ask me, well, why didn't you take a picture? Well, in Arizona back then, of course, we had to have film cameras, and you just don't carry a camera in your car. I mean, even though it was a cool time of the year, you just don't get in that habit because your camera will burn up. 8 months of the year. And had I had a camera, I wouldn't have taken my eyes off of it. I wouldn't have done that because back then you had to turn the camera on and
Hmm.
take the lens cap up and do all this and focus. I wouldn't have missed 1 second of that to have recorded it. It's recorded in here, and
Hmm.
it's recorded in my life ever since. And I've just become a much better person because of that. Why? I don't know.
Wow.
love to know. I'd love to know who was, sitting in the driver's seat, who had their foot on the pedal, who had their hand on the steering wheel. Were they looking out at me? Oh, there's a nice
Yeah,
guy.
there's a human over there.
And you didn't have like an ounce of fear when you got out of the vehicle and stood there?
I had fear from this liquid lava that it might be hot and I might get burned. That was my fear is, uh-oh, I'm too close. And then when I realized it wasn't burning me, there was no fear. So there was concern for my safety just because of that. So, but it was like a beautiful piece of sculpture. It was absolutely gorgeous shape, and it just peaceful. It was like a gentle giant just floating in the sky. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So looking up at it at 90 degrees, and then if you looked at the horizon, that craft took up about 75 degrees of a 90 degree angle. So, and I was about 30 feet underneath it. So I don't know if there's a way to calculate the exact length of that craft. I mean, I guess a mile, maybe a mile and a half. I don't know. It was huge. It was absolutely huge.
Well, David, I don't know why it had that impact on you, that peaceful and friendly nature going forward. But, I don't think you know my whole story, but I would consider myself someone who was an unintentional contactee. I was trying to meditate and contact a guardian angel and instead encountered some extraterrestrial intelligence. And maybe it's one of them in the same, but after that, I saw a craft in the sky. And I don't know what it is about it, but ever since then, I've been more mission driven, like more about doing good on the earth. And I think there was always, a seed of that in me, but it grew, it really blossomed, and I'm not the same as I was before that happened.
So you can kind of feel that. I wonder what that is. And I wonder, think of the people years and years ago that had these experiences, but you were considered nuts, even though, you're a little bit at this point, and had no platform to speak from. So this is so nice that people can be open about it. And the next day when I went back to work, of course, it was on the news, and I'm telling everybody, oh, this craft and stuff. And then Simonton comes out with the guy in the rubber suit. And then everybody at work laughed at me. Oh, that's what you saw, somebody in a rubber suit. And that shame shut me up for a bit. And that was a really good lesson that I learned from this is to tell your truth no matter what. And don't worry about the naysayers and the finger pointers and the people trying to intimidate you. When you have something that you've experienced and something that's inside, you have this right to speak about it. And that stuck with me too. I got two real good lessons that I learned out of this thing, and never allowed shame or guilt or shut me up.
I remember that newscast, and I remember feeling he just disrespected so many people of an authentic, amazing event that just happened, and he made it into a character of an event. He cartooned, it was just something that he really dismissed. And it was so amazing to me because usually I think about UFOs. I've seen, their cloaking and how they've been really not wanting to be seen by everybody and everything. And so for this craft to make itself known to so many people, it seems like that should have been an amazing conversation. That should have been an open door to people coming out and feeling more comfortable telling their truth. But there was something about it that maybe the powers that be didn't think that we were prepared for it. And so instead of honoring what we've just seen, respecting what we've just seen and investigating more, they try to downplay it and make everybody feel like they were ridiculous and that their eyes were deceiving them. So I agree with you. I think this platform and everybody being able to tell their truth on their stories and their experience is so important. And it is so necessary that we build a community that is brave and a community that is ready to say, you know what, if you haven't had the experience, then you're not extraordinary. Because I've seen it, and I've been blessed to have these encounters and these experiences, and I figured that makes me special, not this strange puppy that you want me to be.
Mm.
Me.
And, one thing I've noticed is like a lot of people that, we look back in history and we really respect them, like Mozart and, some people like that, were not respected in their day. People didn't understand them, but then, they went from being the leader to everything that they were doing or knowing became the norm. And so I think that, if you're kind of a step ahead or half step ahead, there's a lot of peer pressure, negative peer pressure, and that goes along with it. A lot of the people considered geniuses died paupers back in their day. And thankfully, David, you're not a pauper. You're
I'm ready for recognition while I'm still warm and above ground.
Yes.
Mhm. Maybe
Yes.
these podcasts will be historical, information later on to tell
Yeah,
the hear the early stories of what we were able to see, what were dismissed, and then going back and saying they saw it, but we just ignored it, and this is what they saw, this is what happened, and now it's part of history. It's part of that the documenting that they exist and how we weren't validated.
before disclosure comes out, this will be the history. Well, this is what happened, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, before we all know what UFOs are about. This will be a part of the history. This will be the step. And
Yeah. So we're trailblazers. We're trailblazers. We're going to honor each other, build a strong community of prideful people based on our experience.
And then lightning struck more than once for you, David.
it did. It did. I had an earlier experience. I don't want to run out of time, but one thing that happened on a camping trip around 2015, I had a different reaction. I had a different circumstance than this beautiful Phoenix Lights craft. And at the time, I was working night shift. So on my days off, I would pretty much stay on that shift. I would sleep days and be up at night. Well, you can only go shopping at Walmart in the middle of the night so many times. So I would go out in the desert and go camping. Generally, I would have 3 or 4 days off in a row. And I loved camping. So one night I was in Southwest United States. I won't give the exact location, and I'll explain. It was 2 in the morning. There was this beautiful full moon, probably about 2 or 3 o'clock from the horizon. The weather was nice. I had a bag of pistachios, and I was eating them and throwing the shells out the window and enjoying the animal sounds and looking at the moon. And about 4 feet behind my truck comes this being. It's about 8 feet tall, had a oblong head and what looked like a 4-foot tube, almost like an anteater tube or an elephant trunk, coming down from the lower jaw. The neck was about a foot long, not wider, little semi-wide shoulders. It was ungodly thin, insect-like thin. Very long arms. The elbows were much lower than ours. The elbows kind of around the hip area. I couldn't really make out the feet, and I froze staring at it. I saw it mostly in silhouette because the full moon was behind it, and it was so bright that I could read by the light of the moon. It was that bright. I'm looking out the back of my truck. I had the windows open, and it slows down, it stops, and this neck and this huge head turns 90 degrees with the shoulders barely moving. And it's staring at me, and I'm staring at it. And I didn't get scared until I thought, it looks so skinny. I bet it's hungry. And then I scared myself, thinking, here's Juicy David.
Dinner.
What hung thing with a tube. 4 feet away from me. So I panic and I'm trying to roll up the windows. And of course, the truck's off, so nothing rolls up. This is it. This is it. I'm going to die. But then it slowly turned its head back forward and walked on. And it walked like it was either sick or hurt or walking in water. It was struggling to walk. It was struggling to move its arms, to move its legs. And the head was bent down. I don't know if whatever that long thing was coming down from the jaw. At the time, I thought maybe it's a super skinny Bigfoot, and that was a beard. I didn't know. And later, when I talked to some other people that knew about UFOs, they think it's an insect something. I don't know. It didn't threaten me, but it certainly didn't welcome me. And that was kind of scary. So leaving my camping stuff around, I start up the truck once it's gone, back out and take off. And, my camping gear flying off the side of the truck.
How fast were you driving?
Oh, well, faster than the Phoenix Lights. Went down this dirt road just flying, every hump. I was airborne. So I get home. It's like, oh my gosh, what was this? And it's like, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to go back. Well, a couple months later, I got the nerve and I went back. And I went back during daytime. And I was able to find the spot. This is out in the middle of nowhere on a tiny, insignificant dirt road. I could find the exact spot because there was my pile of pistachio shells. It's like, this is where I was, and this is where the thing walked. And I looked around, and there was nothing. It was just, I don't know what I thought I was going to see. I just needed to go back and kind of refocus on being afraid that night. And when I got back there, it was kind of spooky. It was kind of scary. I think, ooh, this is where it was, but it didn't hurt me. And so it was a beautiful.
That's kind of brave to even go back. I don't know if I would have had the courage.
Broad daylight this time.
Daytime. That's what I'm saying. Daytime.
David's slow, but not dumb. So, and I had to force myself. I knew I was going to go back. I knew it just took a while. So anyway, it was fine. I thought, nothing's here. There's no evidence. I'm a beautiful day. I'm just going to enjoy the afternoon. And so I went down the dirt road about a mile or two, out in the middle of nowhere, no one around. It was all flat. And I get up to the spot. And I thought, well, maybe I'll walk around a little bit. So I stopped my truck. And when I got out, I heard all this digging sound. And it sounded like about 10 or 15 diesel engines, like earth movers and dump trucks picking up dirt and then dropping the dirt in that whatever that thing is on a dump truck, the scoop, and like banging the scoop trying to get all the dirt out. And I would hear beep, 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 like a truck going backwards. I could hear that, a lot of machinery going on, but there was nothing anywhere. I mean, I could see all around, not a car, not a truck, not anything. And I was, where is this coming from? I actually drove a little bit away thinking maybe down the road they're digging. There was nothing. So I went back to that spot. And again, I could hear digging, digging, digging. There was no one around. And then I got to thinking, could it be underground? So I got on my knees and I put my ear to the dirt, and it was coming from underneath me. A lot of digging underneath me, but no one parked up above ground to go in, to go underground and to operate the machinery. I don't know where they came from. But as I stood up in front of my truck, not too far away, which wasn't there a minute ago, were two big white trucks. And the windshields were onyx black. And these trucks were so shiny, they were so bizarrely bright that it was hurting my eyes. I thought, where did they come from? You drive out in the desert for 1 minute and you're covered with dust. And these were beyond showroom clean, showroom shiny. And I thought, well, that's odd. I was just looking there a minute ago and there was nothing there. Now there's two trucks. So I started getting a little concerned. I thought, well, I better get back in my truck and maybe leave. Maybe they don't want me hearing what I'm hearing. And as I turn around, there's two more trucks behind me. Huge
Ooh.
trucks. I don't know what brand they were. Huge, like pickup trucks. And this weird glowing white paint and shiny, shiny, shiny. And the sun's reflecting off of them and burning my eyes. And the windshield on those two, onyx black. I mean, you can't see anything inside. Then I started getting concerned. I thought, well, I better get out. So I get in my truck, I back out, and I'm slowly going down the dirt road. There's a main road about 7-8 miles from where I heard the digging. And I keep looking behind me. They're not following me. So I think, oh, this is great. I'm going to be okay. So I get to this a paved road. And at the paved road, there's two more trucks, one facing south and one facing north. So whichever way I go, one of the trucks will be right behind me. Oh my gosh. So I ended up going to the left. And as soon as I got on the on-ramp, getting onto the road, that truck takes off after me. And the other one turns around and comes after me. And I'm driving down this road, 90 miles an hour, as fast as I can, trying to stay on the road. One of the trucks is right behind me, right on my bumper, and the other's trying to get around me. And I'm swerving between the two lanes, trying to keep the one behind me, and the one trying to pass me from passing me. I figured they were going to try to push me off the road. And this went on for about 10 minutes. And finally, there was an off-ramp to this road, and there was a house. I just thought, let's give it a shot. And I just took off and thought maybe it's safe to go there. And the two trucks simultaneously slowed down, made a U-turn, and returned back. So my take on it, first of all, when I got home, I figured they're going to be there waiting for me because they got my license plate. Am I going to get out of the truck and a bullet hit me? I didn't know what. But I was somewhere I shouldn't have been, and somebody wasn't happy that I was listening and heard whatever's going on underground. But the bizarre thing is, why are they chasing David when just a mile or two down that road are these giant, like, insect beings walking around? Is there a connection? Is the digging sounded like earthly equipment, but could it be human aliens, something going on underground? I don't know. I've never revealed the location because I thought, what if it's a government installation? Maybe it's nuclear weapons to save the country or something. I was just afraid. I was afraid to give it out and just have people coming to take selfies. And it might have national defense, or it might be human alien. I don't know. I contacted Ben Hansen because I trusted him.
Wait, who did you contact?
Ben Hansen. He does. He was an FBI agent, and he does a TV show called UFO Witness, and brought it up. I thought, well, maybe with his background, he could decide if I should reveal the location to him or not. And I never heard a word. So I just kept my mouth shut about that. But it's just odd. What's going on? And I've never been back. And I've never gone camping since. That was the last time I went into the desert. Never gone
It
back.
ended your camping career, huh? That was enough for you, huh?
It's on Motel 6 from now on. Anytime I want some adventure, it's a motel. I'm not going out there.
Wow. I think it's amazing that you saw that being and that it was so thin and that it's just, and we always think about looking at things above ground and on ground, and I didn't even think about what's below ground that might be happening, but that we really can't see.
How big that is. Well, I wonder now, the trucks, maybe there was an entrance or something underground and they just popped up, when I didn't see them. I mean, something's going on out there. There was a lot of noise underground. I don't know what it is. I don't know. So.
And you said the being that you saw seemed like it was hurt. just by the way it
It,
was walking, that there was something wrong?
yes, it was incredibly painful to any sort of movement, like it was walking through water. Like if you walk in a swimming pool and how slow that is and that resistance that you have, that's exactly what it did. And turning its neck even, and that was a 90-degree turn to look at me. It took it quite a while to look at me and then to turn its head forward and then walk on.
Could you tell what
Did
color
it
it
seem?
was?
I couldn't because it was 2 in the morning, and then the moon was behind it, so it was silhouette. I didn't get to see the details, but I was, just a few feet from it. I was in the back of the truck, and it was about 4 feet behind the truck, so I was probably about 8, 9, 10 feet away from it.
That's close. Did it seem agitated to see you?
Mm, No, I was waiting for that. I was waiting to, what's it going to do? It's like in the movies, just when the danger's past and you relax, then all at once the hand jumps in and grabs the person, and
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. It walked on, but then I thought, is it just trying to, is it going to come back and eat me? Is it going to kill me? So I waited till it was at least out of sight, because I thought, well, maybe it didn't see me in the truck, and I was afraid to turn the truck on so I could roll up the windows, because then it would know I was in the truck. So I waited for it to pass, and I just got out of there. I just took off.
Mm.
But it didn't threaten me. I scared
Did it
myself. Didn't scare me, I scared me.
did it have eyes? Did you have eye-to-eye contact? Did you kind of looked at each other's?
We
Did
faced
it
each
have
other,
eye?
but I
Uh-huh.
couldn't see because the moon was behind it. So I couldn't see
Okay.
the detail. But when it turned its head back
Y-
at me, that's when I could see this long thing coming, like from here on, at least 4 feet. And it almost came to a point, and it was thick, like my goatee, about all this area. And it just
Mm-hmm.
hung down very close to this tiny, skinny abdomen. Um, and it walked on 2 feet, but it looked like an insect.
You
You know,
know,
Really?
I have read some other people saying that they saw insect-like beings like that.
well, that was enough. I, I,
No
I,
more camping for you.
I and I belong to MoveOn, and all these people keep telling me, "Oh, I want to see something. I want to see something." I think, no, you don't. I've had three experiences, and it's like that's enough for me. I would like to understand what it was, especially the Phoenix Lights. I'm fascinated by that, but I would love to know what these beings are. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm kind of curious as what's in that whatever the digging was. And I do some remote.
Mm.
I'm going to sound too woo woo and psyche, but I tried to go back to that spot where the digging was, and I just got knocked back. It was like, no.
Mm. Mm.
Well, I mean, you said that, before the Phoenix Lights, you weren't interested in this at all, to the extent that you were hanging out with one of the most famous people in the UFO world and had nothing to talk about.
It's more.
So it is, I think that really is just telling about how, you have a personal experience and it changes a person. All of a sudden you do want to research and, try to understand.
I mean, that I since then, I didn't know anything about MUFON until just
Mm.
recently, a couple of years ago. And then after this experience with a 8 foot creature, and then there was one other before that, I got online. I think, who do you talk to? The police? No, there's got to be
Mm-mm.
someone else. That's when I found out about MUFON, and that people were talking about the Phoenix Lights. I had no idea.
Mhm.
I didn't know that
Mm.
that community was really existing. So
Yeah.
Well, David, we're about out of time. Do you have any final thoughts, Billy, or final questions?
No, I wanted to know from David, did we miss anything? I mean, your story is fascinating. I love all the detail. Um, Anything else? I think we've got a couple more minutes. Anything else you want to kind of let the audience know about?
I had one other sighting, but I don't know if we have time for that.
Well, we might have to invite you back for that.
Yeah.
We're down to our last couple of minutes, but I do want to let everybody know that we do have a website. It's extraordinarystories.com, and there's no dash there, just extraordinary starting with an X, stories.com. And then let you know that on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, they do have subscriptions. And if you have a subscription, you have some extra benefits, including being able to get into the vault and watch a lot of shows that are in there that have been developed by ourselves and a lot of other people. So it can be really, really fascinating. And you'll hear some other stories from people like David. And yeah, David, I just thought you were, really fascinating to talk to.
Thank you. This has been
I
fun.
agree.
Yeah. And then maybe someday we can have you back and talk about your hospice experience too. I don't know if you, have anything of a spiritual nature to talk about regarding that.
I kept my notes, my nurse's notes, and I was bedside at 3,600 deaths.
Mm.
Oh,
over 17
wow.
years. So
Wow.
5 years of pediatric hospice also. And
Oh, wow.
actually, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I was her hospice nurse.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well, what a
It is.
wonderful service to support people, toward the end
It
of their
is.
life.
it was interesting. I used to work labor and delivery and brought people into the world, and then I did hospice and helped people out. And it's like
Full circle.
nursing has just been such a blessing that I got into. I am so grateful I became an RN.
Okay. Well, thanks again, David. It was a real pleasure. And, I hope we see you around at MUFON. Now, Billy and I have become regulars.
Oh, great. I'll see you there.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Until we see you again, stay extraordinary.